Let's receive 3 breaths together. Inhale and out. 2 more times. Inhale. Ah. And one last time. Ah. Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited for today's conversation. We will be talking about actually probably one of my favorite topics, and I'm very grateful to have my dear friend Dean Powell with me. So today the topic will be circling, and a lot in the context of integration of breath work. And I'm joined by the master of circling, Dean Powell, who came in probably 10 of my facilitator trainings to share his wisdom on circling and all sorts of modalities related to authentic connection and communication. So let's start by having a little introduction about yourself, Dean. I'll do the same, and then we'll flow into what is circling, how we can, how it is a perfect fit for me, and it's actually the missing link to breathwork, if you ask me, and also how it's I find also quite transformational in the context of internal family system, IFS. And those of you familiar with IFS will be also happy to hear that. And it's not something that I experienced with other facilitators. So I'm curious, and maybe some IFS trainers will be able to give me some feedback. But yeah, I love mixing circling and IFS. So, Mr. Dean Powell, please introduce yourself briefly to everyone, and maybe without the glasses.
I just won't be able to see you so well.
Oh,
Hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, my name is Dean. I am currently living in Bali. I have been here for 12 years now, originally from New Zealand. Been traveling for a large part of my life. And yeah, settled in Bali for a while. I like Bali. It's a communal hub of like all sorts, lots of spirituality here, and um, my life feels like a festival a lot of the time. Yeah, and I also love circling. I facilitate men's circles and mixed circles mainly, and I love the men's circles is so important because I think men are still so far behind the eight ball as far as open communication and learning that we have feelings and emotions and how to communicate them. But then bringing the men and the women together like feels like it's the gold for me, like the cherry on top. And yeah, we get to have some beautiful experiences there.
hmm. Thank you, Dean. And I'm Alexandre, French, living in Bali as well, but currently doing an intense retreat, aka spending time with my parents and my children. One good container, so I'm feeling circling tools are needed pretty much all the time to not kill anyone in the household. And I facilitate breathwork, ice baths, authentic relating, and circling for about 10 years. And I guide sessions, retreats, and facilitator trainings in person and online. Anyone interested, reach out, and I'll happily tell you all about it. Let's receive 1 breath. Ah. So, Dean, what is circling?
Well, actually, there's different types of circling. There's circling where people bring in a subject or a topic and they talk about the specific topic. There's which I like more the organic type of circling, where we just talk about whatever's present, whatever's alive for us in the moment, either that very moment or in our lives. For me, when I facilitate that way, like every circle seems to have its own organic theme, or its own organic space. It has a life of its own. So to leave space for that life of, and then to all experience that, I think is the magic for me in circling. Yeah.
So, um, the idea of circling is quite ancient, right? It's the idea of just sitting together. Shape
Mm.
matters, so it's proper round circle. And
Mm,
I always say that in my trainings that the shape matter. People usually sit in circle and it's quite messy. And I know you do the same. It's the first thing we tell people is like, no, 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 let's adjust. So it's not an oval. It's not some kind of a non-geometrical shape. It's a
mm,
circle, and there the energy can really move. And there is something about sitting together that has been there in every culture, in every religion, about, yeah, just being with one another. And the way
mm,
we live in huge organizations like countries and cities is counternatural. And when we come down to just being part of a smaller tribe, and specifically when we stay together for a while. You know, I do 3 weeks trainings where we circle almost every day. There is
mm,
something about, okay, let's bring on whatever is going on. And there is something magical about, yeah, organically giving space for whatever is alive to arise and to be
mm,
brought to the circle. And then basically what happens in circles, people share and 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 talk and
mm,
express. And in those spaces, I always say magic happens, and we're going to explain what is magic in the context of circling and why it's so magical to be together in circling. But in many cultures, in many traditions, they have the same word for circling and healing. And probably that's one of the missing link when it comes to healing. People are all about specific modalities, whether it's breathwork or Reiki or anything, acupuncture, whatever you want to call it when it comes to, okay, those are the tools that are, working on the individual, but there is something about then integrating whatever happened with sitting together. And I don't know if you've had those moments where you've had something happen to your body and there is some kind of release and you just want to talk about it. You
mm,
just want to share. You just want to be heard. And unfortunately, in our Western culture, we just call our best friend, we call our mother. We just have this one person that knows better to how to listen. Sometimes it's a paid friend or like a therapist, and it's pretty much the space we have when it comes to sharing. Um, so the idea of being in a circle is to just be together and listen to one another. Anything else to add to that definition?
I think the important part is there, like, is there's no, like a lot of us have therapists and people, like different modalities are also focused on fixing, and like trying to correct or fix something. Whereas circling is about just allowing, surrendering to what is and allowing whatever is, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever, to have space. And often in that space, there's amazing healing that happens. And imagine, like indigenous cultures, like they've been doing this naturally for years and years. So it's something they have like very common, and like they utilize it all the time. But I think Western society, like we've kind of gone the opposite way where we don't talk to anybody. Or like you said, we might have one or two specific close friends that we might open up to, but even then, we rarely talk about what's actually really going on inside. So I think imagine like you're with your family in this retreat now. Like imagine if this was taught in schools or when we were young, that we had the ability to not be shamed or or shut down, for whatever we're feeling, because what we're feeling is very real and very alive for us. But having a space where it was actually safe to share whatever it is without having it thrown back at us.
So you dropped the S word, so let's talk about that, safety. And safety is the essence of what we are all craving, whether it's in a one-on-one relationship or in a group connection. And I found that the secret to safety is in the guidelines of the container. And those are, laws in a country, uh, but this idea of agreeing to sets of agreements, and those agreements are ruling the space. I think what's very powerful about a container like a circle, unlike other structures, there is no leader. And,
Mm,
and very much we are used to having some kind of authority that is above us that tells us what's okay, what's not okay. And whether we've been conditioned like that, listen to your parents, listen to the teacher, and then we move on to obeying to governments. And genuinely, we want to rebel against that. It doesn't feel right that someone has some kind of authority over me. I love that in circling, the guidelines are the authority. There is a facilitator, there is some kind of here to enforce a little bit those guidelines, but anyone in the circle is very welcome to do the same. So let's talk
Mm.
about those guidelines and how important they are to create safety for everyone. Okay, Dean, throw us some of those guidelines.
So we have guidelines that we read out every circle, regardless of if everyone's been there or not. We continue to read the guidelines because they actually do set the space. And I'll say the other thing about circling is like nobody's like we're all equal. So nobody's higher or lower. We're on the same level. Sometimes somebody will sit in a chair if they have an injury, but everyone, like you said, is equal in the space. And the guidelines help. Like the only thing I do is facilitate the guidelines. And the reason our circles work so well, our groups work so well, is because of the guidelines. And obviously, the most important one is confidentiality. So whatever's said in the space stays in the space. And even like for especially men's circles, disclosing who's in circle would be breaking confidentiality. I always say to people like men in the circle, I always say if you see one of the guys here outside of the space, don't talk to him about what he shared here without checking in with him first, because he might not want to talk about it outside of the space because he feels safe in the space to be able to share it. So confidentiality obviously is one of the most important ones.
Let's pause a moment because what you said is really important.
Mm,
I find that it's absolutely essential to keep what is shared within the space of the circle, and that creates safety. Very often, people can't help but wanting to give advice. Say, "Oh, I have a great book," or "I've been through that, and I know what you need," and can't help it. And really enforcing that whatever is shared in the circle stays in the circle, and at no point, even outside the circle during the break, you are to talk about this with anyone. It creates the space for the person to just share when they want to share, and they might be relieved and complete after they share. They might not want to talk about it again, and they definitely don't want to be, and that's the next guideline, receiving any advice from the person. And that's, I find that this is also one of the key conditioning that we have. We need to fix, and it's again, parents are fixing children, teachers are fixing students, and police is fixing citizens. So we have been really conditioned somehow of being fixed or fixing, and we feel that this is great. It comes from the best intentions. As oh, but I want to help. What's wrong with that? I have something great for that person. And at the same time, when we reflect on when we're going through something, the last thing we want is to hear someone tell us something really smart about us. Because you know what? When someone's giving us advice, there is some kind of a hierarchy that is being established.
mm,
If I tell you something, even if it's with the best intention, even if my book is going to be very helpful, somehow I position myself above you. And that doesn't feel great. I feel belittled. I feel disempowered. And at that point, I'm out. I'm not
mm,
interested in that connection anymore. So the second pieces of advice that you touched on, this idea of no giving advice, no
mm.
advice
No,
given.
no advice given and no trying to fix anybody.
Yeah. But guys, what we are sharing in the context of circling truth is there are rules for life. You
Mm,
don't need to apply them to circling, apply them to life. And see what happens when you don't tell your children what to do, when you don't tell anyone around you, your partner, what they need to do. You stop. You just stop giving advice. You just don't even start. It's very different if someone comes to you asking for advice. You know, I'm also a teacher. Dean is a teacher. People come to us and we teach and we give them advice, but they are requested. Yeah, the student needs to come to the teacher. That's very different energy than me in any context with the best intention wanting to help my parents, my kids, my sister. God knows they need help. That just doesn't work. So if something doesn't work, stop doing it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's definition of madness. Keep doing something the same way, hoping for a different outcome. Yeah. Anything else on advice giving?
I was going to say as well around yeah, definitely. I never want to feel broken. So, like, I want to feel like whatever I'm sharing has value, and somebody giving advice lead to me feeling broken or not okay, and them not being broken. So, yeah, that hierarchy that you spoke of. Also the confidentiality and the advice giving. Like, if a lot of times in relationships, like parental relationships, siblings, lover relationships, what I share, if I share something vulnerable, can be used against me. So I think one of the dangers of speaking outside of the safe space is it could be used against me down the track, which is a very, very dangerous dynamic. So in the space, if we can agree that what is said in the space stays in the space, and the more we enforce that, and people see that that is enforced, and it's a valuable part of the of circling, then they feel safer to open up and share about anything.
You use the same S word again and again. It's the secret of life to feel
Mm,
safe. When one feels safe, then there is no more tension in the body. There is no tension in the body, disease disappear. So we are really touching on something that is the essence of, I don't like that word, but if we want to say the word healing, is very much how can I feel safe in my body? Can I feel safe with others? And for sure, at one point, if I don't feel I can talk anymore, then that's it. The connection is going to be broken. And that's what
mm,
happens whenever we share something and it's calling a judgment or an advice. If I say something and someone's going to respond to it without the ability of just hearing me, without commenting on it, unless it's requested, then it's going to break this space of safety. And then
mm,
when we don't feel safe, we shut down. And when we shut down, that's the end. That's the end of it. So it's absolutely essential, and apply that to every aspect of your life. It will be
mm.
life changing. So we have confidentiality for obvious reasons, and then we have no advice giving. Let's go for the next one.
So the next one, which is another one that I love, that I realized when I use in my life, it changed my life. And a lot of guys in men's circle talk about this as well. I agree to use I statements. So I statements are I messed up. I made an idiot out of myself. I feel bad, stupid, hurt. I did this, as opposed to, men do this and we do this. You know how we mess up and we make an idiot out of ourselves. And I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself. So we have a signal that we do this when people aren't using I statements. So to help guys to like bring the language back to I. If I don't use I can't speak for we, I can't speak for men, I can only speak for myself. So it helps to stop generalizing. It also doesn't sound like I'm giving advice if I use I statements, because sometimes somebody might be talking about struggling with weight, and I go, "Hey, just go to the gym. You got to eat healthy." Like it sounds like advice as well. I can say, "Well, I notice if I go to the gym and I work out and I eat a lot healthier, it serves my body better. I feel amazing. I feel healthy in my body. I can speak from my own experience." So I statements take responsibility for my story. If you notice, like I really notice this in conversation, the biggest thing I notice in conversation nowadays is so many people don't use I statements, they use you. Even with clients, I'll say, how are you feeling? Oh, you feel really hurt, you feel ashamed, but it's like a disassociated language, not I feel shame. Yeah.
Spot on. You dropped another important word, dissociation. I think it's important as facilitators to witness any expression as a symptom.
Mm,
And when people start saying you and we, for me, it's an aha moment. I feel, okay, they are not able to speak from their themselves. They need to generalize, and that's a way of not being in their bodies, not feeling in that connection. And even when reminded a few times, they still go into the
mm,
you and the we when they talk about themselves, and that's a defense mechanism. So it's not so much okay, well, pointing the finger, but really with loving compassion, giving the space for the person to realize how disassociated they've been their whole life, just by making it okay, like yes, you use the example of someone who's overweight. They just want to feel I'm okay, and how I feel I'm okay. Like I'm like everyone else who's struggling with weight, and that makes it easier for me than if I feel that I it's easier than taking radical responsibility that, yeah, maybe I can do something about it rather than, being stuck into victimhood, which feels comfortable, which feels safe because
Mm,
it's familiar, but it's not helping. So yes, really enforcing the idea of using I and speaking about oneself is really essential. And Sue, you pointed in your comment a really nice point. Very often we talk about ourselves, but it's advice giving in a disguised way. So it's also
mm,
really important to catch oneself. What is the intention? And hence the importance of staying authentic and vulnerable and just checking in with oneself, where, for a lot of people, they focus on other people because it's way more comfortable than focusing on oneself. So again,
mm,
I'm not going to judge the person who's giving advice. I'm just going to be able to observe. Again, it's a symptom, it's a defense mechanism using part work. It's a manager who's coming to the surface, says, okay, let's take care of everyone in the circle rather than take care of myself. And that's it. So I find that these guidelines can create a lot of tensions for the managers that I'm referring to, IFS, managers who are used very often, and that's a classic one of taking care of everyone rather than taking care of oneself. That's a classic
mm. And we've kind of been conditioned to this, like society as well. We're conditioned to disassociation, to go to like you spoke about victimhood or, becoming a victim. And it's almost like we're encouraged to be victims, like, just look for the quick fix, the pill, the magic pill, and to not take full responsibility. So for me, the I statements as well, like I have to take radical responsibility, radical accountability for my life. I love it.
Yep. Yep. I think that the radical responsibility is another key word when it comes to, I prefer integration of our wounded parts, but the term we would hear everyone is healing. And
Mm,
this idea of stopping and getting out of victimhood. And yes, there is a space for being angry at our parents and our ancestors and releasing anger and stored, repressed sadness and grief and anger. And then there is a moment says, okay, all right, that part is done. Now I take radical responsibility. This is my life, and I am no longer product of my past. I can
mm,
define my future. I can define who I want to be, and it starts with language. Yeah, it
mm,
starts with the way we talk about ourselves, the way we talk about others, the terms we use, and when we start paying attention to the words we use and in which context we use them, then everything changes. So circling is a great space to witness ourselves in community and see our patterns being reflected back to us
mm,
by trained facilitators and by community. So
mm.
next
And they can
guideline.
catch our
Yeah, go
blind, they
ahead.
catch our blind spots, yeah. So often in conversation, I don't know what blind spots I have. So having somebody, even me, having somebody outside of myself who can catch my language, and oh my God, that's the biggest identifier of where I have, triggers and traumas and still blocked energy, stuck energy.
You said even me. I want to point there that I find that one of the secret to safety in my containers is my radical vulnerability and
Mm,
openness. So the fact that I put myself exactly at the same level as everyone, and then I acknowledge when I'm have a blind spot, when
mm,
I'm wrong, when I do a mistake, usually are the key defining moments of my retreats. So it's not so much what I
mm.
create for others, but when they witness me being in a position where I did something wrong and I
Yeah, yeah,
own it, and those moments people say, "Oh, wow, that's cool. He's not being defensive.
yeah.
He's
He's
able
human.
to receive that. Wow."
Mm,
And usually those are moments that are the most inspiring. And I have some of my graduates here in the group. And I think it's important as facilitators to radically embody authenticity and
mm,
vulnerability. And that is not coming from a place of mastery, but from a place of humility.
mm,
And that is done, yes, from a place of being an integrated human, but also from a place of efficiency in the facilitation. It's also done because this is where the most powerful lessons are learned. Not when the master is delivering his
Mm.
brilliant speech. They are used to that on, you can go to YouTube for that. But
Yeah, yeah.
when there is a moment of humanity, because those are not moments we are used to. We are used to teachers wearing masks and pretending.
Mm.
And when there is a space that is not like that, I find that those are essential simply because of the power of the mirroring brain. Like we
Mm.
are impacted by what's happening in each other's brain even more than what people can hear.
And it keeps the humanness is the most important. Like for a facilitator, like the more I remain in my vulnerability, my humanness. I have a very good story about this actually. When I was doing like tertiary training, because I'd already been facilitating in an addiction center for quite a number of years, I was already doing all of it like naturally. So it was like something I was very good at, and a lot of people in the training course hadn't done any of this work and they hadn't done any facilitation skills or so of course I was really good at it and I was the best in the class and I got up and I did one of the practicums one day and I was like, of course teacher was like, oh, I can't even fault it, it was amazing. And I'm like, like a little bit cocky. But then the person after me, I watched as this person struggled to get through every little part they struggled, and the teacher kind of broke it up. And I looked around the room and I saw everyone was like really engrossed. Everyone was really learning from this. And they couldn't learn anything from me because I was just like being cocky, arrogant, like I was getting it all right. And it was a really good reminder for me, Dino, like people don't necessarily learn from you getting it right all the time. So fucking share where you don't, share where you're struggling, share your vulnerabilities. Mm.
Yes. And if you reflect on your favorite moments on TV, when you get a documentary, those are the best moments.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
someone is authentic and vulnerable, says, "Oh, cool, that I like."
mm,
We
yeah,
love that, yet we struggle to embody it because that's dropping the mask and people struggle to feel
mm,
fully seen. But the secret is it's completely liberating. And
mm.
and that's the secret to attraction. It's a secret to success in anything we do is to just, hey, this is me. I'm a human. I'm not an AI.
Mm.
And when we do that, we give permission to others to do the same.
Not everyone can relate to the success, but everyone can absolutely relate to the struggle.
Hmm.
Mm.
Amen.
Oh,
Next guideline.
one of the other guidelines we have is I agree to not judge. I agree to a non-judgmental atmosphere. And again, that comes back to the safety. So it's important that people can share anything at all. My God, I've been in some circles where people have shared some stuff that like I look around the circle sometimes, but I'm amazed, like amazed at what people will hear and will listen to and will open themselves up to, and allow, like the things that come out in circles sometimes. I'm like, I look around the room expecting people to be cringing or, like, oh my God, threatened, but it's actually a really, really beautiful thing to realize people are very, very accepting most of the time when this space has been created for it.
And here is another really, really powerful one that we're not used to. One speaker at a time.
Mm.
Comes
Equal
obvious for
sharing
people
time.
who are used to circling, but this is not how we interact in life. It's
Mm,
just interruption and not having space to fully express what we want to say because we need to speak all the time. There is no space for silence. If I stop speaking, someone will speak over me and my emotion is gone. So create a container where it's one speaker at a time is
mm,
quite life-changing for a lot of people. You want to speak to that?
mm. Yeah, I think this is probably the most important part and we also have one of the guidelines. One is equal sharing time.
We'll
The
come to
other,
that next.
yeah, it's a similar one though. Like it's equal sharing time. So one speaker, not no cross conversation. So the person who's speaking, even if they go quiet for a while, they still have like because a lot can be said in silences. I think some of the best thing gets said in silence, and the best things come out in silence. So allowing them the space to be able to just be and to be witnessed in whatever they're going through in that moment can be valuable. And a lot of the times, like people will, and sometimes people cry and somebody will grab a tissue, and I'm like, no, just you don't have to get them a tissue. Like let them. And a lot of the times we do this because of our own uncomfortability. So if I'm not comfortable with people crying or with me crying, then I struggle with other people crying. So they'll get a tissue or they'll do something because I'm a doer, I'm a giver, I have to people please or do something instead of just being able to sit with whatever is.
Yes,
Mm,
100%. So for me, in my trainings, people are not allowed to give a tissue. They're not allowed to do anything to support one another person. We let the person ask for the support
mm,
that they need. And if they need a
amazing.
tissue, they'll ask for a tissue. If they want a glass of water, they'll ask for a glass of water. And it's actually really hard for people to not support. So a few things on one speaker at a time. Um, in my experience, the first part of whatever someone is sharing is just to help the person settle into their emotion. So it's not so interesting. They just need to give context, so they tell some kind of a story, and they need the story get out of the way to feel heard. And it's only when they feel heard and there is space for what is deeper, the emotion that has been suppressed, to come to the surface. So it's really important to give to the first part of the whatever the person is going to share leads to the silence. And it's in the silence prior to the release of the emotion that that it becomes really interesting. So it's very
Mm,
important to really give that to stress that. And you added another one of those guidelines, which is equal airtime,
mm,
and that's huge one. Yeah, it's huge one. We'll talk about it, but in my experience, you have types of people who take all the space in the group and others who are judging those people and just
yeah.
waiting to be invited before they share. And I like to give the responsibility to the circle. You guys, if you are the one who takes all the space, well, appreciate that, have an self-awareness of that, and give space to others. And if you're the quiet one, stop, get out of your shell, and take responsibility as well. Instead of whinging that people take all the space and this girl she's the one who's talking and getting all the attention, da 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 da. Stay and get out of being a victim, and take responsibility and come on, speak out, take the space that you need. So
Mm,
it's set as a guideline, and then I leave the responsibility. And when people start
mm,
whinging about what's happening in the group, I bring it back to them as a mirror, say, hey, hang on a minute. You also allowed that to happen. So it's
mm,
very important to have this guideline of equal airtime uh,
mm,
for everyone. And then all of a sudden, it's a community that feels balanced. Again, remember this idea
mm,
of circling and having the energy nicely moving into the circle. If some people are completely silent, the energy is not it's not moving.
mm,
It's not and there is something about the unity, the oneness that comes from feeling, wow, I can connect to everyone here. I've heard everyone, I've
mm,
witnessed everyone. There is a sense of balance that creates harmony, and it feels goddamn good. And we're
mm,
not used to that. We're always used to some people stealing the show, being just fabulous and having nice stories and being more interesting. And they are judging themselves for taking all the space. Others are judging themselves for not having anything smart to say. And when there is a space where, yeah, whatever is
mm,
going on, whatever is alive in you has the same value as the other person, whatever they have to share, it creates a sense of, yeah, oneness, which is usually the main outcome from these circles, says, well, I'm not alone. Whatever I thought
yeah.
I was different from everyone, it's not the case. We're kind of living a different version of the same story. We're all born, we all have the trauma of our parents and our birth and our ancestors, and they went through war and stuff, and we inherited all that. So there is something, and now more than ever with social media and mass media, we live in the kind of unified reality. And that creates unified traumas, whether it's, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking away. What do you want to
I
share
think
on
the
that
other
thing?
the other thing important thing about what you just said though, Alex, is you give permission. So you give them permission to, like, if they don't speak up or they don't take accountability for being heard, you give them permission to be able to do that. So they have permission to speak and say, look, I feel like I'm not getting enough airtime here. Or so I think having that permission, or having the permission to actually, I feel like I'm talking too much today, to kind of back off. So I think in a family space and family environment, or in a school space, we don't get that permission. So I think that's the valuable, important part there. And the piece of, the important piece is that to have the permission to be able to speak when I don't feel like things are aligned, or I don't, even with me, like I say to the guys, look, feel free to call me out if I'm not using I statements, like please call me out. Like I'm a facilitator, been doing it for a lot of years. I'm very good at what I do, and I don't know everything. So, and people call me out, and I love it when they do, because it's like, I mean, it shows me that they feel safe enough to be able to do that, which is most important.
Yeah. I want
Mm,
just to respond to a comment of Sue, and who mentioned about sounds coming out and different cultures and how people interact in different ways. In circling, we have this often there's some kind of a gesture and alignment that we invite people, and someone is sharing something and it resonates with you. The invitation is to do a little
mm,
sign like that, or some kind of a just something that makes the person feel that they are not alone with it.
mm,
Yet again, for me as a trauma sensitive facilitator, I'm looking at everything people do as a symptom, so I'm not judging. And if someone will burp, this is kind of someone burping, that is something that is considered rude in the culture. But if someone burps all the time, maybe they just have something that needs to come out and they don't know how to get it out. So
mm,
whether it's a sound or whether it's a gesture or anything that comes out, I'm just welcoming it with
mm,
curiosity and compassion rather than judgment. So as a facilitator, my reaction to anything would be something along the line of, hey, I'm curious what's going on for you. And just the
mm,
invitation for that person to reveal, because if there is some kind of a trigger of the vagus nerve, or the nervous system is being activated, it can come out in an unwanted, uncontrolled way. And I'm just observing that. And that can
mm,
be as obvious as not making eye contact anymore, or not feeling comfortable and over moving, or grabbing a bottle. Any kind of
mm.
behavior is a symptom. And
And
I'm
giving
tracking it.
space for that, yeah.
Yeah, and we make space for
Mm,
that. Say, hey, and
mm,
maybe the person is not ready, and they say, "Oh no, nothing. I
mm.
just I just wanted to move because my back is hurting." Okay,
Yeah,
all right, and that's
yeah.
it, and I'm leaving you alone. But maybe there is something else underneath that discomfort that
Mm,
needs to be expressed, and the body is just, somatically is just feeling it and is being blocked by the mind that doesn't feel ready to
mm.
express.
I
So
have a cool example of this, where there was a guy who'd actually been coming to Circle for about a year. He'd been coming to Circle, and then he was sharing one day, and he said something, and he laughed after he said it. And I said, I'm just curious, like, why did you laugh there? And then there was silence. He didn't say anything. And then I just saw his lips start to quiver. And then I saw a tear roll down his cheek. And then he started to sob and sob and sob. And he said, and he shared for the first time, he said, I've never told a soul this in my whole life. He shared that he was sexually abused by his brother when he was a kid. This guy was in his 60s. So he'd kept that to himself his whole life. And just the one hide, the one tail, the tell, sorry, that was his laugh after he said something vulnerable. So even catching that, catching a simple laugh, or somebody yawning. "Oh, I notice you're yawning," because a yawn can be like escaping or not feeling comfortable in the situation. So these little telltale signs are really cool to kind of to pick up on. And like you said, they might be nothing, maybe, oh no, I've just got a sore back, or but sometimes there's a lot underneath that.
So let's be clear, they are never nothing, but sometimes the person is not ready to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
out with it, or they don't have consciousness of it. So maybe it's somatically or it's unconscious and it's
Hmm.
just not coming out, but it's always a tell.
Yeah,
And laughter is a big one because it's a common one.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and what happens is, if I tell you a joke, what is the structure of a joke? I tell you something and then I say something unexpected. Yeah. And it's the fact that the brain is trying to make sense of something, then doesn't understand it, and there is a short circuit in the brain that triggers a laughter. So every time there is a laughter, it's it's either it's a response to a joke, but when there is nothing funny,
Mm.
when there is no rhythm, specifically when people are talking and revealing, it's definitely a manager. It's definitely a way for them to handle and to not
Hide
really fully
trauma.
feel. So it's hiding traumas. Yes.
Mm.
So and again, some people are ready, some people are not, and the circle is there to welcome it all. So let's transition. I'm checking the time. Um, I want to talk a little bit on the link between IFS, internal family system, and circling. There are more guidelines. We could go on forever. There are so many gesture and things we can talk about.
They're pretty
Let's,
much the important ones that we
yeah.
use.
So what happens in the model of internal family systems is it says, to make it short, that we have different parts of us. We are, and all our behaviors, all our habits are some kind of responses to what happened to us. So we have experienced things we don't want to experience anymore, and we develop some coping mechanism. Some mechanism will be proactive, some will be reactive. So you might say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every day and build some shell and production. That would be a proactive way, or I'm going to eat healthy. And then there is also alcohol or some any kind of abuse. That would be more of a reactive way. Yeah, so somehow we are going through life in protecting ourselves in a proactive and reactive way and developing habits around that, being, you know, outgoing or hiding or whatever it is. Now, what is at the core of all our managers is protecting some parts that are very, very wounded, that are
Mm.
called exiles. Those parts, we don't want to go there. They are usually shame part, fearful parts that have been locked away from usually early childhood wounds. Now, what happened in circles is people just share, and there is no space. We are sitting there and things. So basically, people bring up, certain topics. And what it does, it triggers other exiles in people, parts that are very, very much pushed away that we don't want to address. That's why, Dean just shared how someone shared something he had never shared before. This is happening pretty much in every circle, in every training that I hold. Everyone, every
Mm.
time. Why? Because we all have exiles. We all have fearful parts that don't feel safe to come out. And in the Western world, the way we address them is through long therapy. And you need to sit and feel safe with, I call him a paid friends. And with my paid friend, slowly, slowly, I get to bring up stuff. And then somatically, I get to identify where it's located in my body. And somehow all the modalities are around the same, being able to make sense of what's happening in the body and be able to verbalize what's associated with it. What I love about circling, I call it forced mindfulness practice. In circle, exiles get triggered,
Mm.
but because or thanks to the safety of the guidelines, all of a sudden those exile parts soften,
Mm.
relax, and they give permission to the managers to soften and to relax. Or instead of being defensive or focusing on others or arguing or justifying that, okay, maybe this is a space where that little wounded child can come out, because no one's going to fix, no one's going to tell that there is something giving advice. It's just going to be heard a little bit like a wounded child that is really deeply hurt, and all he wants is a cuddle in the hug from a
Mm.
loving parent. Yeah, but that parent is rarely there. The parent usually wants to fix, wants to move on, other agenda. But when that wounded child can just feel safe to relax and express without judgment, without feeling that anyone was going to say anything, they can speak as long as they want. Oh my God. And that I find is a missing link to IFS and missing link to breathwork. I call breathwork prep work.
Mm.
I love breathwork because it helps bring up the unconscious. It bring to the surface the subconscious. Yes, great. But if you don't have a safe container to share, we're missing out. And yes, it's good to journal. Yes, it's good to have time of reflection, but traumas happen in connection. They
Mm.
can only be resolved in connection. And that's where the circle, I find very arrogantly, I put it above therapy. I put it above any other form of, because it's togetherness. It's not like one person is above and is fixing me. It's just
Mm.
strangers. And in my training, if you listen and you watch, I can send you hundreds of testimonials. They don't talk about me. They talk about each other. And they talk that over and over. So, oh my God, the things I've experienced with you are amazing. Yes. And guess what? We can experience it with every human in our life. It doesn't have to be anyone special, just someone who knows and who can apply those basic guidelines, which everyone should embrace, regardless of the context.
Mm.
And
The
that's,
other,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the important piece there is like the difference between circling and a paid friend is the paid friend isn't going to go there with you. Like in circling, they're going to go there with you. Most often, there's somebody there with you emotionally in the same, like I can meet them in that space and we're there together. So it's also, I don't like the person sharing isn't so alone. And a lot of the times, I think I've been to many, many, many breath works, and sometimes breath work will bring something up for me that I like. It's brought up something very traumatic, and then I don't know what to do with it. Like, and then it's like go home time. And I'm like, fuck, what do I do? And I had this experience at the last Bali Spirit Festival. I went and played. They asked me to come and play some music on the guitar, for the people as they were coming out of the breathwork. It was really beautiful. But at the end, there were these two people who were just like absolutely like traumatized, still going through it really like in a really bad way. Everyone was just packing up, the facilitators. They were all packing up and leaving. And I was like, guys, you got like there's two people here who are in a really, vulnerable space, vulnerable state, and they don't look all right to me. Does somebody want to, come and look after them? So I think the danger of breath work is, I mean, I love breath work. It does definitely bring that up, but I think it's so important to be able to have something, and circling is probably the best thing I think in terms of adding on to that, a place to be able to share whatever came up without judgment, without shame, without blame.
100%. And
Mm.
and one of the topics on breathwork is can breathwork be re-traumatizing? And that's
Mm.
often something one of the critics we all hear over and over around breathwork. And you've got it. It comes down to creating safety and helping have proper integration. A third of my sessions are around integration. And that's why I have created my certification because it was missing. It's not there in most modalities. They do probably a better work job than me in the breath, but they don't do a good job in my experience. Very rarely, very, very, very rarely,
Mm.
I've experienced a session where I felt integrated thanks to the support of the space. One thing that you hear over and over and you see in breathwork sessions at the end is a space for sharing. Yeah, everyone has a space. Okay, you share and then you share. And sometimes what we see is someone shares something and then the facilitator says something smart. And then
Mm.
someone else is sharing and then the facilitator says something smart. And we go on like that.
Mm.
That's not good. The idea of having just a space, and here is what happens in a circle. We share impact. And that's something so essential to circling. And as a facilitator, what we learn and what we need to do is to connect to our intuition, connect to our felt sense. And when someone shares, to check in, what does this person need right now?
Mm.
And when we have this connection to ourselves and connection to the person who shares and observation and awareness of what's happening in the group, we can come up with the right thing to offer. And that can be physical touch.
Mm.
That can be a group hug. That can be impact sharing. That can be to see if others have gone through the same situation so the person doesn't feel alone in their experiences.
Mm.
Oh my God, let's be clear, you know, what is being taught in our circles. We talk rape, we talk suicide, we I've had people in my sessions share that they are attracted to children. They are mothers in the group.
mm,
I'm a father. Imagine the safety for that person to share that they're attracted to small children. Where in our society is the space for those shares? Yet there is countless websites for child pornography. So there must be a lot of people interested in that topic. And how we address it as a culture, as a society, we just lock people away. We just say, oh, you're a bad person. We don't want
mm,
this kind of person in our society. I love it, but does it work? Of course it doesn't work.
mm,
If something doesn't work and you keep doing it, it's called madness. How do we keep adding prisons to solving a and people are very happy to talk about how the trauma they experience. So a lot of people share about sexual abuse, da, 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 da. But where is the space for the perpetrators who talk
mm,
about the rapes that they have committed, to the abuse and the bullying and all the things? That's what's happening in those circles. That's what is the proper integration when everything is welcome without judgment. All the parts, not the only the wounded ones, but the wounded ones that have
mm,
committed things. And one of the key takeaway from the session is there are no bad parts. Yeah, that's the book of the founder of IFS. It's like all the parts are welcome. And when people share, including the facilitators, what they have done to others, what they have done to their own children, all
mm,
of a sudden, that's a space of just pure compassion and humanity. And this is what we all need, a
mm,
space where like, we can fully share without holding back. And
mm,
that's and for me, breathwork is fantastic to bring you there. An ice bath is an amazing way to release and feel, oh my God, okay. But the magic happens in the circle.
mm. Even like what I love about this, it actually happened on the Wednesday night, is somebody shared something quite I mean, potentially vulnerable. And one of the other guys actually had a reaction, and bless him, he put his hand up and said, "Oh, I notice I have some judgment around what you just shared." And that just opened up a beautiful discussion around, the judgment and the stigma that we have associated with so many things. And this is the healing. This is where the healing begins. Like you said, there's no reform for just locking people up and throwing away the key. That doesn't serve them or anyone else. It doesn't help them. But being able to open up and unpackage and start to find where, like if it's locked up inside with all my other trauma, it's mixed with darkness and everything else. I don't know what it looks like, but to speak it out, I shed light, literally shed light on it, and I can see what it looks like. Oh, that can go over there, or that can be with this, or um, one of the other things I love about circling is guys will say, oh, I didn't say a word tonight, but I felt like everybody shared exactly what's going on for me. So I didn't even have to say anything. And I feel like I got healing, like because people are sharing exactly what's happening for me. This
Yes.
happens often.
It's time to wrap up, but I've just to finish on that. I've done sessions in the prison in Bali,
Mm,
and um, to provide a space for people to just express themselves in a non-judgmental way. Like what I told them is the only reason I'm there facilitating and you're in prison is we don't have the same skin color,
mm,
you know? And if I had your skin color with the some of the things I've done, I'd probably be in prison too.
mm,
And that's just the reality of privileged of being a white man. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Dean, do you want to tell us a bit about your offering? And I'll do the same, and then we'll take some questions and reactions.
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of things I do. Well, I'll actually share some of the stuff with you, my links, like integrated humans. I'll
Can you
share
share
this
that
with you,
after that
Alex.
in the group chat?
Okay, I'll share it later on in
No,
the
no,
group
yeah,
chat.
yeah. Tell us a bit
Yeah.
about that.
So it's one of the best things I get to do with people is it's called quantum shift. We go back as early as we can, like to childhood trauma. Most of us like are revisiting our childhood trauma all the time. So the quantum shift, like it gets rid of this childhood trauma, like it reframes how we see everything. We grow up with this void, this missingness, this, like something's missing in me, and I use everything I can, like sex, love, alcohol, drugs, whatever I can to try and fill this void. and nothing works. So basically, we go back and explore and examine the void and see what the void is, only to discover that there's actually no void, that we've been living with the perceived void our whole lives. So quantum shift is like 30 years of therapy in one session. It's one of the best things I get to do with people. But yeah, I have a men's circle, online men's circle coming up on Monday the 21st. I'll drop the link for that. So for men all over the world, I run regular circles in Perth every week. This is an online one, which I love to do. So they're the main things that I get to do. Mixed circles as well, like I said. So yeah. Thank you for having me here. I love talking about this stuff. It's one of my favorite things to do, to talk about. Mm.
And I highly recommend working with Dean in one-on-one. I've done quantum shift with him as a client, and I had him as a facilitator. So if you organize, I really invite people to reach out to him to speak or to facilitate in your retreats or your sessions. Thank you, Dean,
Thank
for
you, bro.
being with us. And for me, I offer online courses on breathwork, and I share about these modalities as well in my 11-week online course. I have a facilitator training 4 or 5 times a year in person in Bali and in India. And once a month, I do a 5-day transformational retreat in Bali. You're very welcome to join me. And I will also do some online sessions and workshops, 3 hours long, where we do breath work and circling. So you get to also experience that. So that's it. We have some questions. So please unmute if you have questions. The first question from Cub, I'm going to, Cub mentioned, how do you speak to if someone is burping or making noise, how do you address that? So and how do you help the person navigate that? I have a
Mm.
secret, a magic formula. I use the following sentence. I am curious.
Mm.
It's very hard to be angry at someone who's curious. So I'm not coming with a judgment. I'm not coming from an opinion. I'm just saying, hey, I'm curious. And I will use that every time there is some kind of a behavior that is out of the normal. Often the main one is not paying attention. When someone
Mm.
is talking and someone else is not looking at them, that's a sign, that's a tell. Every time there is someone who is moving, playing with the pen, who is not giving full attention, it's a coping mechanism. I'm just going to reflect back to them. Hey, I'm curious what's going on for you. Oh, come on, let's be real. 9.9 times I'm spot on, and there is some kind of a trigger and something comes out. And they might say, Alex, you're full of shit. I disagree, and I don't like what's happening there. As Dean says, it's a space where everything is welcome. We're not looking for, and of course, as facilitators, we're subject to a lot of projections, and we're used to that,
Mm.
and we just welcome the projections with love and compassion. But there is, of course, a lot of that. We are, authorities and father figures, so there's a
Mm.
lot that comes for people, and we just, welcome it. And with a space of non-judgment, it comes, we give space for that. That's pretty much it. And then we just
And
give space. That's another thing.
mm.
Is very often people ask me, wow, I don't know how I would handle someone who's telling me they've killed someone or they've raped someone. I just give it space. I just give it space. And very often that's all that we need. And that's the power of silence, the power
Mm.
of space, of just, wow, if I don't know what to say, it's pretty okay. And I just give it space. And I say that I don't know what to say
Mm.
now, you know?
One of
And
the things you do, Alex, which I've noticed in your trainings, which I love, is you'll always encourage a breath as well.
mm,
Like it's
space.
okay, well, let's take a deep breath and let's breathe into that. And I like that. It's the space in there as well. Yeah. And the curiosity, I'm the same. Like I will generally say, oh, I noticed something, or I noticed this. I'm wondering if there's something, I'm wondering if there's something behind that. I want like this guy who laughed. Oh, I noticed the laugh. That didn't sound funny. I wonder what's behind. Is there something else there? So it's the curiosity is the best thing there, I think.
Exiles need some kind of invitation.
Hmm.
So they will not come out by themselves. They need some kind of support. So we really need to have the right sensitivity to and also respect the timing, you know? It's like just if you are really connected to yourself as facilitator, you will know when someone is some kind of ready. And they will tell you with their eyes, they will, they will have some kind of a communication. They will have a tell that says, okay, now it's my turn. But again, the power of bringing topics like, sexual abuse, which, I work with 80% women being in Ubud, and 90% have experienced some kind of misuse or abuse. Those are common topics. So I also know with some topics, bulimia, food, that's 99% of people that will have some kind of reaction to that topic. And a lot of really early childhood traumas come out.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's just the reality. We have time for, no, we don't. Any more question before we close? All right, friends. Well, last chance. Yes, in my all my sessions, all my trainings, there is always circling. Always. This is really. Okay, go ahead, Simon, unmute yourself.
Um, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I had a question. You were talking about closing a breath work, and yeah, so it's common to have a circle, somebody shares something that they experienced in the breath work. You said the facilitator says something smart, but obviously the facilitator can do something that isn't quite as just saying something smart. They can do reflective listening.
Mm.
But I wonder, yeah, what alternatives do you use to close a breath work if you're not having that sharing circle?
I always do a sharing circle.
Okay.
For me, the point of breathwork is the sharing circle.
Mm.
Like, there are tons of study that when you do sauna and then therapy, a lot more comes out than if you just go to therapy and you don't do sauna before. So all somatic practices are not complete if there is no space for verbalization, for verbalizing. So for me, it goes hand in hand. It's not criticizing psychotherapy. It's not just criticizing somatic work. They go absolutely hand in hand, and you can't do one without the other. So for me, there must be circling in my session, and whenever my students do sessions, because when they do training, they don't have a lot of time. They just have, let's say, 1 hour to do a practice just to demonstrate, and they mismanage the time, and there is no time for integration. Everybody feels, wow, I can't, don't leave me now. Like now I'm not
Mm.
okay. And
Mm.
and when we talk about integrating people's experience, everything is welcome. I've had triggers, I had traumas come out, everything, as long as there is a compassionate space for sharing after, everyone will live integrated. And when they're not, there is space to come back to after. And sometimes it's just one on one and the person is not ready and it takes a few days. But yeah, it's also the part where I get people to take radical responsibility. There is,
Mm.
if you're, there is a space after that. If you don't take it, you don't take it. But that's all we can do.
Can also highlight where somebody might need some further work, like something else might have come up where they might need a session with somebody.
That's
Yeah.
why I don't like shorts. I do minimum 5 days and then 3 weeks. I don't do an hour and a half anymore or even 3 hours anymore. I will do a few online, but truth is, it's more for people to discover me and see the depths of what I do. But the real work takes time.
Mm.
That's it. It just takes time because some people will take sometimes. I mean, I say in my trainings that people, and you can see that in my testimonial, people always share the same regret. I wish I had opened up sooner. And
Mm.
Mm.
sometimes they take 3 weeks to open up, and that's okay. But they
Mm.
always say that over. Like the sooner people feel safe to fully open up and share, the deeper we can go. Thank you, Simon. Anything else?
Thanks.
Thank you, Simon.
Hey,
Thank
hey
you.
guys, do you, I know you want to wrap this up. Thank you. It's been really great. Do you think there is ever a time and a place to use like a timed 2-minute bell or something like that? Like I'm just thinking if you're running a 2-hour event and you or is it really down to the skill of the facilitator to be able to interrupt, guide, all of that, or I know what my own belief is, but I'm just curious what you guys might how you guys might answer that. Thank you.
I definitely use a timer, like running men's circles. We have like a 4 minute sharing, and then we open it up and we time the feedback at 2 minutes just to keep us on track. That enables the equal sharing time. So that's very good because often we'll get one person who might like to talk a lot and a long time.
Uh-huh.
If that happens, I'll gently interrupt and say, "Oh, excuse me, I just want to make sure we, have space for other people to share." But yeah, I like using a timer. My wife
And do you
hates
think
it.
that
Yeah,
and do you
it's
think that might be more apt with a group that perhaps meets on a regular basis that knows one another rather than a group of strange people?
I've done both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah,
Dean.
yeah,
Yeah.
both are okay, but and I know that Dean does it. Like there is a time for some rules, and there is a time to break the rules.
Mm.
And it's not and I know that sometimes he has a 4 minute timer that he poses and he waits because something's really big is coming up. So it's
Uh-huh.
also important to just be
Hmm.
fully aware of what's going on. And as I said, sometimes it takes a while for the person to come to the point where something big is coming. So there is something about
Yeah.
connecting to your own felt sense and intuition
Hmm.
and to know whether someone is rumbling about their past because they just want to talk and they've never been heard. And there is a
Yeah.
moment where an exile is coming out and all the managers needed to relax for the exile to finally come out. So yes, you said it. It takes practice, it takes experience to know when someone needs to take space, needs to speak up, and when someone just needs to and be interrupted. And for that, yes, we have techniques and we have tools. A lot of body language. I come forward into their space. I start,
Uh-huh.
and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they feel something needs to happen. But usually, people are made very clearly aware that it's there must be space for everyone to share. And I will say that says, if you've taken a lot of space previously, just gently reminding you to give space to others, and if you've been quiet, gently reminding them to take responsibility and speak. So I tend to let the container and the people take responsibility rather than being strict with
Hmm.
my timing, but it's yeah, organically.
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Get in touch with us. I will keep my graduates. We have a second hour now with the graduates where we're going to be going deeper and answering questions. And Dean, you can also go, my friend. I release you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Love
you,
you.
guys.